Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson resigned as chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee after some colleagues aired their disappointment over the investigation into anomalous flood control projects.
The 45-year-old Pigatan Bridge in Alcala, Cagayan has collapsed, injuring 7 people.
Residents of northern Cebu are appealing for more assistance following the magnitude 6.9 tremor.
The Philippine National Police, or PNP, has denied rumors of a coup plot targeting President Bongbong Marcos.
First in the news, Senator Ping Lacson has formally resigned as chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee after weeks of hearings on alleged flood control anomalies. Here is the report.
After weeks of hearings into alleged anomalies in flood control projects, Senator Ping Lacson formally submitted his resignation letter to Senate President Tito Sotto. Lacson said he serves only at the will of the public. He admitted that some senators' names surfaced during the inquiry and that colleagues have expressed dismay over where the investigation was heading. He added that a narrative was being spun that he was shielding House members while targeting fellow senators. He insisted the probe has been guided only by evidence. Lacson stressed that he has no further political ambitions beyond 2031. On The Big Story, former Blue Ribbon Committee Chair Richard Gordon said he was surprised by Lacson stepping down. He advised Lacson not to be bothered by fellow senators, noting that as a seasoned investigator and former policeman, he has all the tools to carry out the probe.
Surprised that Ping would even consider that. I'm sure there is some other reason for doing that, especially with all the intramuros going on, all the pending threats to remove again Tito Sotto, who I think is doing a good job. There's got to be some stability in the Senate, but obviously the Senate is divided into pro-Duterte and anti-Duterte.
The question now, who will replace Senator Ping Lacson as chair of the powerful Blue Ribbon Committee? Political blogger Jesus Falces told Sa Totoo Lang that the post should remain with the majority bloc to maintain stability in the Senate.
Well, logically, if we're talking about logic, it has to stay with the majority. Hindi pwedeng ibigay yung chairmanship sa member of the minority. So it can only go to a member of the majority. Right now, the vice chairperson is Senator Risa Ontiveros, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But I know for a fact she will not accept it, or she doesn't want it. And then there were also talks about Senator Kiko Pangilinan, which was the other choice.
Now let's get the latest from the Senate.
Mobile Journal Merimon Reyes is now reporting live on the ground. Merimon, ano ang latest ngayon?
Angelo, good morning. Dito ngayon sa Senado, magpapatuloy ang mga budget hearings, especially budget season ngayon. Ang regular plenary sessions ay suspended until Friday to pave way nga dito sa budget season. Pero ang nasabi ni Senate President Tito Sotto related dito sa resignation ni Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson, pag-uusapan daw ng majority bloc on Wednesday, tomorrow, or possibly on Thursday, depende sa magiging schedule ng caucus nila, kung sino ang i-elect nila na papalit dito kay Senator Ping. Pero sa ilang ulat, may mga pangalan na lumulutang. Kahapon kasi ang sabi ni SP Sotto, may nakikita raw siyang 4 na mga senador na maaaring pumalit dito kay Senator Ping. Pero they have big shoes to fill. Pero sa mga pangalan nakikita natin, lumulutang ang pangalan ni na Senator JV Ejercito, Senator Raffy Tulfo, Senator Pia Cayetano, Kiko Pangilinan, and Risa Hontiveros. But then again, sabi din ni SP Sotto, aaralin niya kasi natanong din ng media kagabi sa isang mensahe kung maaari pa ba nilang hindi tanggapin yung resignation o maaari pa ba nilang mapabago yung isip ni Senator Ping knowing na may mga members pa ng Senado, including Senator Kiko Pangilinan na gusto pa sanang magstay itong Senator Ping as chairman ng Blue Ribbon. Sabi ni SP Sotto, aaralin at pag-uusapan daw nila yan. Balik sa inyo.
Well, regardless who's going to chair the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, buo na ba yung pasya nila na hindi na talaga i-air muna, itigil na nila yung kanilang investigation dito? And if ever there will be another investigation, it's going to be in an executive session?
Oo, Angela, ang nasabi ni SP Soto dyan na may ginagawa din namang investigasyon nga ng ICI, pero technically, buhay pa rin naman daw talaga ang Blue Ribbon. Ito lang din naman kasi yung komite na pwede gumawa ng motu proprio investigations without the need for bills to be filed for privileged speeches. So buhay pa rin naman daw. Possibly yung schedule lang nito, magkakaroon lang ng postponements or changes lang sa scheduling ng hearing, pero buhay pa rin naman daw ang Blue Ribbon Committee. At ang nasabi rin ni SP Soto, kung sakali naman knowing Senator Ping din, maaari pa rin naman nasa pamamagitan din na privileged speeches tulad na ginagawa niya sa floodgates of corruption, maaari pa rin naman daw yun gawin kung sakaling merong mga gustong tugisin na corruption issues to be tackled dito sa Senado. Sila Senator Erwin Tulfo naman, ang sinabi niya, nirerespeto niya itong desisyon ni Senator Ping. Yun nga lang, medyo nasasayangan kasi napagkakatiwalaan nga itong si Senator Ping pagdating sa ganitong klaseng mga investigasyon. Pero ang tinitignan din ni Senator Erwin, maganda rin daw na tumutok na ang Senado sa mga legislative measures na maaaring gawin para maiwasan na yung occurrences ng mga korupsyon related din dito sa anomalous government projects.
All right, thank you for that. Mobile Journal, Mary Monreyes reporting live from the Senate.
Several lawmakers dismissed Senator Alan Peter Cayetano's call for the mass resignation of top government officials and the holding of snap elections. Senate President Tito Soto said there is no constitutional or legal basis for such a move. He warned that conducting snap elections without legal grounds could lead to uncertainty and chaos.
Cannot be an option. What do you do with those who are not guilty? What do you do with those who are newly elected and have no bad records? Idadamay mo doon sa mga guilty or sa mukhang guilty kung hindi man guilty. Kung meron bang marumi, ba't natin idadamay yung mga malinis? We will be entering something like uncertainty and chaos in the political world.
Other lawmakers, including Akbayan Party List Representative Percy Sandanya, also opposed the proposal, saying accountability, not resignation, is what's needed to address corruption.
Ang panawagan ng taong bayan ay accountability, panagutin yung mga nagnakaw sa kaban ng bayan. Hindi eleksyon ang sagot dito. Baka nga dahil sa snap election na proposal, baka maka-evade pa ng accountability yung mga dapat panagutin.
Now, joining us now to provide insights on budget insertions and related matters is former presidential spokesperson, Attorney Edwin Lacerda. Attorney, thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning, Angela, good morning. Nice to be first time to be in your program.
Yes, finally, it's good to have you, and we'd like to pick your brains about certain issues, Attorney. Let's start off with insertions. Ang dami kasing interpretation from different people, whether it's good, it's bad, it's part of the amendment, it's not. Could you explain to us, based po sa experience nyo, ano po talaga ang insertions?
Just for a context, the problem there is the senators themselves loosely use amendments and insertions very interchangeably.
Yes.
Right.
So, but technically, when you under the Constitution, there's only when there's a budget presented, elevated to that the budget comes from the House and review approved it goes up to the Senate for their concurrence or amendments. That's where the power of the senators is to really review the budget from the House. Either they approve it or they amend, because there's a perspective from the Senate different from the House. That's why they have the power to amend the provisions in the approved by the House. The problem there is when you say amendment, anything that is amended by the House, by the Senate, in plenary, in committees, there's what we call institutional amendments. Those are all amendments in the open, right? Because we're supposed to be transparent and all that. So when you do that, that's what the proper term is called, amendments. Now, if it is approved by the Senate, so there are two versions now. There's a House version and there is a Senate version.
That's right.
Now, it goes to the bicameral conference committee, because that what we call BICAM, they're the ones responsible to reconcile the two versions. You see, there will be disagreeing provisions there, and they have to reconcile it for the final sign up. And if that is approved, it is given to the president. The problem there but before that, in the BICAM committee, what happens is, so both houses, the representatives from the House, the representatives from the Senate, they will discuss, what are the provisions that we disagree? How do we reconcile? That's a valid power given to the BICAM committee to reconcile. What is not allowed and what is not in the rules are what we call insertions. You cannot insert any provision, any project, anything that has not been found in either of the versions. So if the House, so you cannot add something there or amend something there, which was never there in the first place. So natawag na insertions, you insert something which was not found in the original version of the House, which was not found in the version of the Senate. Those are what we call insertions or BICAM insertions. That's where all these illegalities come in. That's why when Risa was being attacked, that you're claiming that you don't have insertions, but you have insertions of 3 billion. And Risa explained, these are 3 billion. These are all amendments that went through the process. The insertions, sila lang nag-uusap. There are no notes. There are no records. Those projects or those insertions suddenly just popped up.
Yes.
So there's no paper trail. There's no recording. That's why it's irregular. It's illegal. You're not supposed to do that. The only rule of the BICAM is to reconcile the provisions.
Hey, attorney, no, kasi several lawmakers have, mga iba, dinidikit nila yung insertions amendments. Yung mga iba, sinasabi nila separate altogether. But also there are some senators who say na even the insertions itself, apart from the amendments, technically they are not really illegal. It's just that how it's implemented. I'd like to ask, is this insertions separate from the amendments in the gray area, so to speak, kasi walang batas?
No, sa BICAM committee tayo, there are, ayun ang problema ito muna, sa BICAM, ang trabaho na talaga ng BICAM is really to reconcile. So if there are provisions which you have to reconcile it, or it's possible, no, na doon sa BICAM, may lilitaw ulit na version from the House that they want to bring up again. So for as long as that particular provision was found in any version, whether in the Senate or in the House, that is not technically an insertion. Those are amendments. And when you reconcile it, that's what we call legitimate reconciliation. May reconciliation talaga. Ang insertion, because it is so loosely used now, even the floor, in the plenary, in the committee, sometimes they will call it insertions. That's why it's so confusing. That's why the senators were quite alarmed when Senator Lacson said, lahat naman yan naggumawa ng insertions except sa dalawa. It sent a connotation na lahat sila may ginawang irregular. Dalawa ang matino. But it's not, because of the very loose application of the term insertions, where it should be, if it went through the process, it should be called an amendment. So yung mga insertions na talaga na may pangit na connotation is yung mga provisions na hindi pinag-usapan sa House, hindi pinag-usapan sa Senate. Pasok lang basta sa BICAM. In fact, if you recall, there's another term that they're using now, small committee.
Yes. Right.
It's the BICAM is composed of several representatives from both Senate and House. May mas small committee pa, which is allegedly, it's done by the head of the Finance Committee of the Senate and the House Committee of the House, no, and the Speaker and the Senate President. So the discussion is so opaque. In fact, I spoke to Laila De Lima, and I asked her, "Do you have a copy of the BICAM report 23, 24, 25?"
Right.
Sabi, wala silang kopya. They had a copy. She was able to secure a photocopy and not a official copy of the 2025 BICAM report. So the question is, parang it's not being, it's a public official document supposedly, but it's not released to the public. The only time Toby Tiangco was able to get one was because he was asked by the president to look into it, and that's what he requested.
Okay.
But it's very, very opaque. That's the opacity makes people wonder, suspicious. Ano may saan nanggaling itong mga insert? That's why there's a claim, 142 billion yata ang sinasabi.
So when you saw it, attorney, when you saw it, yung ibang mga through the BICAM, nakita niyo po ba na yung ginawa doon, let's say po ni Congressman Zaldico, ay isang insertion o amendments?
very clear. Ang batayan mo na lang ganito. Ang mga pinasok ba dyan, dati ba na natin nakita sa version ng House or nasa Senate? Kung si Saldi yan, he tried to insert provisions from the House from the House. No? Tingnan mo yung original version ng House version ng bill. Kung wala doon, wala yun, hindi yung, tas wala rin sa Senate, insertion yan. So, part naman of the Senate, ang sinasabi nila, si Senator Grace po at that time, at saka si Senator Cheese. So, dapat ang sumagot sa version nila, nandoon ba yan sa yung pinasok niyang mga provisions na sa original version ba yan ng Senate? Kung insertion din yun. So, that ang term na ginamit talaga is BICAM insertions have really a bad connotation.
Yeah.
Hindi mo nakikita. Yun ang very clear. But ang problema talaga dito ang paggamit kasi ng insertion at saka amendment, very loose.
Interchangeably, parang gano'n. Yun nga po, attorney, kasi I read your open letter to a certain broadcaster regarding insertion versus amendments. And it's very clear po when you read it from our point of view. Pero here you are, si former Senator Franklin Drilon saying na insertion and amendments are just the same.
Because of the conventional way of using it. Senator Drilon is a very, very good friend of mine. We discuss very regularly. Hindi ko pa siya nakakausap tungkol dito. In fact, yung mga ganyan kasi it's part of the conventional way of discussing it. When you say insertion, amendment yan. When you say amendment, insertion yan. That's why I think it's high time for the senators to use the terms very, very accurately. Because the fact that you're using it interchangeably causes much confusion. And why when Senator Ping Lacson said, dalawa lang muna insertion, what does it suggest to you? Does it suggest that all of these people are doing something, propose something illegal? It's a bad signal because of the way that senators have been using the terms amendments and insertions. And because the senators use it interchangeably, members of the media also use it interchangeably. You can't blame media for using the same terms that the senators are using it. And that's why there has to be a discipline from among the senators that when you're proposing something in the open, in the plenary, in the committees, let's term it properly.
Amendments.
Amendment. When in the BICAM, if it's also if the versions that you're proposing to reconcile are there, those are legitimate reconciliations. Those are amendments. Walang problema yan. But when you're proposing something which was not found in the original version of the House, which was not in the version of the Senate, then that should be technically called BICAM insertions.
Attorney, with what you've explained now, with the assumption of regularity, whether insertion or amendment or whoever's interpretation, let's say nakalusot na yung budget, it's already passed. Anong safeguards then meron within Congress, out of Congress, within the executive to ensure na itong projects are fully implemented properly? Because are there mechanisms na para matatrack mo ito? Kasi ang daming projects, attorney, na nakalusot na may lalaki ng amounts.
I think the benefit of now we have the benefit of hindsight. We've learned from this 2025 budget. We've seen so much corruption. They have made a move to make it transparent. So from before it even leaves the Senate or the House, there's a BICAM report. Show it and let's go through it. Are any of the provisions here not found in the original version of either House or Senate, or any projects that were proposed found in the Senate or the House? That's already a BICAM. Let's take it out because the BICAM committee has no power. The only power they have is to reconcile the provisions in both versions. Pag wala dun sa original version ng House or the Senate, dapat hindi natatanggapin yan. That's on the level of the BICAM. No? And then the senators and the congressmen will have to approve the BICAM report. Then they go through it kung may nakalusot. Ayusin natin. Now, let's say may nakalusot pa rin. Then it goes up to the president for signing. He has a final veto power. Because unlike any other legislative bills or laws, bills that deal with the budget have what we call items. The president can do a line item veto. So,
yeah.
kung nakalusot yan sa Senate, sa House, sa Congress, dapat ang DBM or yung staff ng presidente titingnan ulit at suriin at kung ang magsasuggestion ng mga may veto. In our case, in our time, I remember that President Benigno Aquino was very, very strict.
Yeah.
He would go through it and he would always have line item vetoes.
Oo. Alright, yun nga, no, pinag-uusapan natin, attorney, the trouble begins not with the art of inserting, but what happens after the funds are allocated, no? Even si Senator Jinggoy, when I was able to talk to him, yun ang sinabi niya eh. So the question here, attorney, should we abolish insertion? I'm talking about the insertion that you interpreted, ha? Should it be abolished or kailangan i-cleanse lang yung system?
Angela, it should not be allowed. They should be very, very clear of the parameters of the power of the BICAM, but it has been abused over the years. Di ba? Alam natin na nangyayari na yan noon sa panahon ni Pangulong Duterte. Doon umusbong itong malalaking mga flood control projects na yan. Alam na nila yan. So talagang dapat hindi pinapayagan yan at dapat maging conscious ang mga senador na huwag natin payagan ng BICAM insertions. Now, doon na sa pag nakalusot pa rin kay Presidente yan, ano na yan? Sa implementation, problemang malaki na yan. Dahil you're not supposed to, senators and congressmen are not supposed to involve themselves in those projects.
Opo.
That's right.
Ang kwento nga nila, di ba, Angela, na may kakuntsaba ng contractor, yung mga ganun. So, it's very unfortunate. But those things, pag mainam na ang pagpasa ng batas, bantay naman dapat ng executive branch, lalo ng DPWH, na walang conspiracy na kumita ang mga mambabatas. The DPWH officials, they are the most attracted to temptation talaga kasi silang district engineers have their own cap, no? They have 150 million projects that peso projects na ina-approve nila. Regional is a higher and of course central. So yun talaga dapat matiyagin talaga ng taong bayan. And everything should be transparent. Actually, the DPWH, meron yun, nandun yun.
But when we talk about accountability, ang dami natin pinag-uusapan dito, attorney, tingin niyo po ba meron ding responsibilidad, may accountability na hindi po tinignan ng maayos sa may mga insertions pala along the way, especially itong 2025 budget from the DBM and of course, nung pinirmahan ng Presidente?
Yung talagang, alam mo kasi ang problema, can I just digress a bit? Ang flood control kasi, ngayon, ang sama ng pakinggan ng flood control project. So pag flood control equals, irregular na yan.
Yeah.
But we have to be very conscious of the fact that the factors to consider there is need and intent. Hindi porke flood control project yan, corrupt na yan. Because sa totoo lang, a number of our places are below sea level or mababa. So talagang kailangan mo ng flood control project. So nung sinabi ni Pangulong Marcos na isususpend ang lahat ng flood control for next year, ano nangyari? Maraming tatamaan doon.
Right.
That's why he had to recalibrate or Secretary Vince Dizon had to pivot and explain it because not all flood control projects are illegal.
Yes.
You have to see that is there a need for this particular community to set up that flood control project? And if so, let's not stop it. Now, the other factor apart from need is intent. Yung intent, ibang usapan yan kung may kalokohan gagawin yung congressman, senador, or yung DPWH official, or yung contractor. Doon talaga papasok yung criminal intent na dapat bantayan din. So, wag nating sabihin porke may flood control project yung panukanang binigay yung isang congressman or isang senador, may kita na siya doon. Hindi. Tingnan natin kung talaga may pangangailangan ba doon sa komunidad na yun ng isang flood control project. Doon na tayo bantayin natin. Ngayon, mas bukas ang isip natin. Dapat bantayin natin itong proseso doon kung may kikita ba. Yan ang mahalaga. And we know that SOP ngayon, what they say, of the total budget project fund allotted to a project or flood control project, it's only 30% that's being applied to the project. So you've got a huge 70% that's what we call leakage or lagay, no? Parang bucket parang balde yan, tawag doon leakage Kasi corruption, leakage ang tawag doon. 70% leakage, 70% hindi na pupunta sa proyekto
Right.
Baguhin yan, not only from the side of the legislature. Okay. Very, very, this is the first time, Angelo and Angela, that that the budget has been
Right.
reviewed by ordinary Filipinos. The budget is so esoteric.
Okay.
When you see numbers, you just lose it.
Right.
Pabayaan mo na yun.
Yeah.
Well, Attorney, thank you so much for shedding light, diba, dun sa topic natin na insertion versus
Mahaba-habang usapan pa yan.
amendments. I mean, hopefully we can have you again para po sa mas malawak pa na po na discussion. But for the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, former presidential spokesperson, Attorney Edwin Lacerda. Thank you so much.
President Bongbong Marcos is set to appoint the country's next ombudsman, with Justice Secretary Boyeng Remulla included in the shortlist. But the possible appointment is already drawing political intrigue. Here's the report.
Justice Secretary Boyeng Remulla is among the 7 names now being considered by President Bongbong Marcos for the post of ombudsman. The Judicial and Bar Council released the shortlist on Monday after nearly 2 months of screening and public interviews. Aside from Remulla, the shortlist includes former COA chairman and current Philippine Competition Commission head Michael Aguinaldo, Supreme Court Associate Justice Samuel Gerlan, Deputy Executive Secretary Annalisa Logan, retired Supreme Court Justice Mario Lopez, Sandigan Bayan Justice Michael Frederick Muzni, and Philpo's Chairman Stephen Cruz. The palace has already received the list and is awaiting the President's final decision. Whoever is chosen will replace Samuel Martires, who retired in July. By law, the President has until October 30 to appoint the next ombudsman. Remulla was brief in comments when asked about this. Remulla was brief in comments when asked about his inclusion in the shortlist.
I'll still be reporting for work here for sure. Tomorrow, kasi marami pa taming tinatapos. Kaya tingnan natin how it goes. I think the shortlist was submitted already. Wala pa akong update. It's a work in progress.
The Ombudsman's mandate is to investigate and hold government officials accountable in cases of corruption. In a Facebook post, Senator Amy Marcos earlier claimed that Remulla was set to be appointed ombudsman on Monday, something that did not happen. The senator has insisted there are deeper political reasons behind Remulla being pushed for the position.
There is a very ominous reason, clearly, for Secretary Boyeng to become the next ombudsman. It's the new phase in the effort to get rid of VP Sara before 2028.
Balak daw ipakulong si Vice President Sara Duterte, pati na ang gaya ng senadora na kaalyado.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
7 people were injured after the 45-year-old Pigatan Bridge in Alcala, Cagayan collapsed on Monday afternoon. Here's the report.
Several heavily loaded trucks were left stranded at the center of the collapsed Pigatan Bridge in Alcala, Cagayan. The bridge can be seen completely split into several sections. According to the initial investigation of the Alcala Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office, 4 trucks were crossing the bridge at the time of the collapse. 7 people were injured and immediately taken to the hospital. The Pigatan Bridge has since been closed to all types of vehicles. The Alcala local government, together with the Department of Public Works and Highways, has designated alternate routes for motorists. The area has been cordoned off, with rescue teams on standby to ensure public safety. Cagayan Governor Edgardo Aglipay said the incident happened at around 5 in the afternoon. One of the trucks was carrying 50 tons of palay, while another was loaded with 25 tons of ipil wood. Alcala Mayor Tin Antonio said the Pigatan Bridge was already 45 years old and designed to carry only up to 18 tons, far below the combined weight of the 2 heavily loaded trucks. The mayor also raised questions about the bridge's original design.
This road and this bridge is the only national highway traversing this part of Cagayan. And so there is no other choice except for trucks and big vehicles to pass by this bridge. And so ang tanong ko, kung ang gamit ng mga trucks dito ay talagang pangmalalakihan, this is the national highway. Bakit 18 tons lang ang bridge na ito?
This is not the first bridge collapse in Cagayan this year. Last February, the Cabagan Santa Maria Bridge in Isabela also gave way due to overloading.
Now, joining us for the latest on the Pigatan Bridge collapse is Rueli Rapsing, head of the Cagayan PDRRMO. Good morning, sir. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, and to all the viewers, good morning.
Alright, so ano po update natin sa situation natin sa bridge? Na yung mga trucks po, nandun pa ba?
The provincial engineering fleet, tinanggal na po sila, sir.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So prior to the incident po, sir, meron na po ba tayong ginawang inspection dito? Na-inspect na po ba ito?
Sa assessment po ng DPWH, ma'am, meron silang certification in good condition ang bridge natin 2024. That's after nung ginawa nilang retrofitting 2020 to 2023. Somehow, yun nga nangyari.
Pero I was wondering po ano po yung magiging epekto po nito dun sa mga karatig bayan din po, kasi I think this is a major bridge na dinadaanan ng mga iba't iba, no? So what will be the effect on the economy per se?
Well, yung sa travel time po, yung mga commodities po natin, they are rerouted sa San Jose, Bagao to Kapisayan, Dumon, Gataran Road. That would take an additional 2 hours sa travel time po nila. And for light vehicles naman po, we have a reroute alternative, yung circumferential road within Barangay Pigatan po. So that's an additional 15 to 20 minutes ride.
How, if ever, sir, no, yung pag-repairs natin, ano po ang magiging estimate nito in terms of cost, and how long do you think this will take?
I think sa repair, sir, that won't be possible. It would be a reconstruction of the bridge.
Okay.
And if there are still remaining funds sa DPWH, it's highly recommended that they at least construct a Bailey Bridge as a temporary measure para makatawid mas mabilis. But for light vehicles, hindi for trucks.
Yung reconstruction po, sir, are you talking about dyan same location dan or maghahanap kayo ng ibang location?
That would depend on DPWH, sir. Kung iba siya ng location, may iba yung route natin. This is the Maharte. Ito yung major highway natin going to the north, to Ilocos Norte. So, very usual na lahat ng mga vehicles dyan lang dumadaan, sir. Ano? It's just that 5 decades na to, when this was designed, ang consideration at that time was just for hindi na consider yung increase ng trade at economic activity.
Meron po bang nakalagay na na signage po dyan sa bridge na yan, sa entry and exit point, kung ilan po yung kapasidad nito?
Yes, all roads and bridges may load limit po ang DPWH.
Pero may mga pagkakataon po ba na nadadaanan po talaga siya ng mga beyond its limit?
This is the only highway that we have in Cagayan going to the north. So all vehicles traverse the highway po.
Okay. So base nga po dun sa report natin, and I think nabanggit nyo rin po, 45 years old na itong bridge na ito. I was wondering kung ito po ba yung first time na may nangyaring ganito pag-collapse dyan po sa bridge na yan?
Sa province ng Cagayan, ma'am, yes. And we're strongly recommending DPWH to do an inventory sa lahat ng mga bridge dito sa Cagayan and assess kung gaano na katagal, if it's still going to withstand sa economic activity po ng probinsya.
Oo, tama yun, para maiwasan na po yung ganitong pangyayari. Doon po sa 7 na injure po dahil po sa pag-collapse ng bridge na to, kamusta na po sila? Nasaan po sila ngayon?
Yes, mga nakauwi na po, ma'am. Mga minor injuries lang po ang natamo nila. Then when they were brought to Gataran and Alcala district hospitals, na apatan naman po sila ng mga first aid po. at nakauwi na rin po.
Alright, we will continue to get in touch with you po. Thank you so much for your time. That is Rueli Rapsing, head of the Cagayan PDRRMO. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po sa inyo at sa inyong mga viewers.
Now, a 4-month-old baby miraculously survived the powerful earthquake that struck Cebu last week. Here is the report.
Several areas in northern Cebu are still reeling from the powerful earthquake that struck last week. On the island village of Gibitngilin, Medellin, reaching affected families means braving rough seas. Among those left grieving is Maribel Pilones, who lost her son, daughter-in-law, and grandchild when a rock slide crushed their home at the height of the tremor.
Sakit kayo. Nawaan nga akong anak nga pinangga nga buutan. Gumagat. Aka na ganing nami problema, nako'y problema din. Muna sakit yung guys ako nga ang akong anak nga mo'y makatabang mo'y gikuha sa Ginoo.
The victims were identified as Marwin and Catherine Pilones along with their 6-year-old child. All three were buried alive when massive boulders rolled down from the hillside. But amid the tragedy, a miracle unfolded. The couple's 4-month-old baby was found alive without a single scratch. Neighbors believe the parents shielded their infant from the falling rocks, saving the child's life at the cost of their own. Many other homes on the island were damaged. Cracked walls, fallen debris, and long fissures on the ground serve as reminders of the earthquake's strength. Now, some families are still staying in makeshift tents, anxious over the thousands of aftershocks that continue to rattle the province. While donations have reached the island, locals say the assistance remains insufficient and are appealing for more help to rebuild their homes.
Kailangan namin yung ma-repair namin yung bahay, sir. Sa mga senador dyan sa Malacanang, tulungan nyo kami dito. Wala kayong pera. Kasi wala kaming pera sa ngayon.
For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
Joining us via Zoom this morning is John Carl Borbon, Tourism and Information Head of the Incident Command Management in San Remigio, Cebu. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, sir. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, hingi lang kami ng update, no? Anong po ang sitwasyon ngayon on the ground?
Ito po sa San Remigio, we are still experiencing po aftershocks. A lot of aftershocks. Medyo malalakas din po na aftershocks. And kanina lang po, mayroon pong isang malakas na ulan na experience po dito. Yan po yung naging isang struggles din po ng mga tao sa amin kasi most of our community members are staying outside their homes po. They are having parang tents po na may mga trapal. Yun yung naging home nila for a while. Yan po.
Yung sinasabi niyo po na tuloy-tuloy yung aftershocks, no? Anong impact nito sa mga already structures na medyong nakikita niyo may bitak na at mahihina? May possibility pa na baka gumuho rin ito?
Oh yes po, sir. All of us here were advised po to be outside po sa mga infrastructures po na may mga cracks kasi yung mga aftershocks medyo malalakas pa. May possibility po talaga na guguho yung building na may mga cracks po.
Well, last week po, sir, we were able to talk to your Mayor Mayor Martinez, and he said at that time ay kailangan po ng bayan po ninyo ng potable water, of course yung pansamantalang matutuluyan ng mga displaced families natin. And of course, sabi nila maraming tulong pero hindi makarating sa kanila because of yung mga bitak-bitak na daan, etc. But ngayon po ba, ganun pa rin po ba yung ating sitwasyon?
As of now po, yung clearing operations po is undergoing po. Meron na pong mga lugar na nadadaanan na po ng mga sasakyan. So, yung reported po last time na hindi nadadaanan, ngayon po nadadaanan na po. May mga tulong na din na dumating doon. As of the moment po, 50% po ng barangay namin is meron na pong source of water. But however, yung upland barangays, hindi po bumabalik pa yung tubig. Pero yung local government unit po ng San Remigio ay nag-extend na po doon ng tulong tulad ng paglalagay ng tangke ng tubig sa tulong po ng mga donations ng mga government agencies po ng tulong sa lugar.
Alright, if I'm not mistaken, since yesterday, ang naitalang aftershocks po dyan ay 7,000 already. Gayun pa man, yung ating mga kababayan po ba, meron na po bang nagsiuwian sa kanilang mga bahay? And dyan din po ba nagkaroon din ng tent city na sinabi po ng ating Pangulo na maglalagay po sila?
Yes po, as of the moment po, wala pa po uuwi sa mga bahay kasi takot pa po, may mga trauma pa po yung mga tao. And currently, andito po ako sa aming state. May more than 1,000 families na nandito ngayon. Nandito pa po sila. And we are planning po na maglagay pa ng additional 10 cities po doon sa mga barangay na may mga sinkholes. Kasi as per our mayor during our meeting yesterday, na delikado pa po talaga na umuwi sa mga bahay.
Okay, so paano po yung yung ma-address po yung edukasyon naman po ng mga bata ngayon na nasa tent city sila? I understand schools are still suspended.
Yes po. Pumunta po dito yung representative po ng DepEd kasama po ni Mayor. Nagkaroon po sila ng conversation na maglalagay po ng temporary school doon po sa isang malaking space po na may...
Hello? Ayan.
Sir John?
Nawala siya ng signal.
Internet,
Oo, mahirap din. But yun nga, no, kasi the last time that we talked to the mayor there, yun yung naging problema nila, walang potable water. But it's good to know na yung mga ilang problema nila na nabanggit last week is being addressed na right now.
What you're seeing on your TV screens right now is a shot of a tent city. Yung pinag-uusapan natin na supposedly this is the solution to the problem na nakikita natin na tutulog sila sa kalye at sa loob ng plastic. Supot yung mga families. Now they are at least in open ground. But the question is, pag may dumating na bagyo,
another problem
ito.
Well, let's call him again. Sir, can you hear us okay?
Yes po, sorry po,
wala
nawawala yung
pong problema.
signal.
We fully understand that. So, yun nga po, tungkol dun sa edukasyon po nila, you were explaining kanina.
Yes po. Meron pong pumunta dito na representative ng DepEd. They were talking po to create po temporary school po sa mga estudyante. Yung may malaking space po. As of the moment, naghahanap kami ng parang lugar na gagawin to temporary school. Maglalagay po ng parang temporary classroom para po tuloy-tuloy din yung klase po ng mga estudyante.
Okay.
Sir John, ano yung based sa assessment mo, ano yung biggest need ngayon ng mga, nakatira dyan sa tent city and also sa city nyo, no, na kasi I understand na pag nagkakaroon ng ganitong sitwasyon, may medyo scarce ang supply ng water, food, medicine. Ano yung biggest need?
In my observation po, the biggest need po as of the moment is yung mga tents po talaga. Kulang na po kami ng supply ng mga tents. Hindi po namin kayang mabigyan lahat ng mga request po ng mga tents kasi lahat po is nandun pa sa labas ng mga bahay. When it comes to water po naman, sobrang dami po ng mga donations na dumadating. At nire-release po namin talaga lahat doon sa lahat ng household ng San Remigio.
Okay. So by saying that, sir, ibig sabihin po,
Wait,
may mga kababayan pa rin po.
Naghang, Angel,
Naghang pa si sir. Can you hear us okay now? O nawala.
I can po na urgent needs namin is we are requesting safe po to stay there.
Ayun. Hello? Can
Hello po. Yes
ayun,
po.
Ayun. Yun po, having said that po, sir, ibig sabihin po, may mga nakapag-ocular po ba kayo? May mga kababayan pa rin po kayo dyan na yung tulad po na nakikita namin dito sa social media na nakatira or nakahiga po sa gilid ng mga kalsada?
Yes po. Meron pa po. Yes po, meron pa po.
Okay.
Yes, Sir John, ang question ko lang, lastly on my part, kasi may mga schedule na, well, not really schedule, pero meron pang mga bagyo na papasok until the end of the year. Yung mga tents, assuming natatagal tong sitwasyon, kakayanin ba ang malalakas na ulan?
Hindi po talaga kaya, sir. Ever may malakas na ulan tsaka hangin. We experience po, meron the other night dito, nagkaroon mo ng malakas na hangin. Lahat po, gabi yun, lahat po ng mga nandito sa tent city namin hindi makatulog kasi they are parang pinoprotektahan nila yung tent nila para di madala ng hangin. Hindi po talaga siya kasap na po.
Right.
Pero meron na kaming mga tents na binigay po donation from DSWD, Red Cross. we're constructing po na maging maganda na yung tent city namin.
Okay. Alright, hingi na lang po kami ng concrete data po from sa inyo po, sir, yung total estimate damage po dyan because of the earthquake, and of course, ilang pamilya po yung apektado po.
As of the moment po, sir, wait. Tingnan ko po muna dito sa...
Oh, no problem. Alright, kasi
as of the moment po, we have 20,000 households na affected po ng lindol. Meron kaming sir, actually di ko siya na-count,
no
ma'am, pero hindi po sa aming...
Yeah, it's okay.
We'll get back to you na lang po regarding that, para po mas concrete yung ating detail pagdating dyan. For the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. John Carl Borbon, Tourism and Information Head of the Incident Command Management in San Remigio, Cebu. Ingat po kayo.
Awesome.
Don't go away, we're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Economic managers underscore the role of the private sector in keeping the country's development momentum alive. The details in this report by Mobile Journal, Amy Atienza.
The Philippines remains as one of the fastest-growing economies in the region. Despite issues on corruption and governance, the Department of Economy, Planning and Development sees that private sectors help alleviate the economic status of the country.
The Philippines accumulated a 5.5% economic growth rate in the second quarter of 2025. That is amid the ongoing controversies on flood control projects that are still continuing talks in the Senate and in the Independent Commission for Infrastructure. There is no denying that these public constructions also went on an economic decline, but private constructions helped on keeping the country's economy intact.
We in fact incurred a negative growth on public construction. And that's because we have already front-loaded most of our activities during the first quarter. But you see, we were saved by private construction, individual and corporate constructions. It went up by, I think, double-digit figures.
This is seconded by DepDev Secretary Arsenio Balisacan, who said that the Philippine economy leans onto a private economy. He added that the public infrastructures funded by the government contribute only 15% to the Philippines' economic growth. It is critical that reforms in different sectors, including health, education, and digital transformation, will push through for a greater impact.
Since the start of this administration, I've been pushing for reforms that improve, enhances the enabling environment, particularly our efforts to climb off digitalization, improving the framework for the PPP code.
The agency kept their expectations straight. The flood control controversy would be an opportunity to improve the country's governance, transparency, and accountability, especially in the digital world, are crucial to gain public trust once more.
As I said, the world is quite dynamic and things evolve, and what we need is a quick response to challenges so that when even as new challenges and governance come in, we should be able to respond quickly. And I think that accountability and transparency is key to that. That's why this administration is pushing for a more rapid digitalization.
Mobile journalist Amy Atienza, we are One News.
The Philippine National Police has dismissed rumors of a coup aimed at ousting President Bongbong Marcos. Acting PNP Chief Lieutenant General Jose Melencio Nartates said there is no reason to remove the president. He added that a loyalty check within the police force is not necessary at this time. Nartates' statement comes after Armed Forces Chief of Staff General Romeo Brawner revealed that retired officials had allegedly plotted an uprising against Marcos.
What's the basis? We have a president
that is a sitting president who won by majority votes. Siya na mismo ang nagsabi to put a stop of corruption, especially flooding that caused the flooding here in Metro Manila and nearby provinces, and even sa lahat.
A member of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, is reportedly resigning over the body's limited authority. For the details, let's bring in Mobile Journal, Arles de los Santos. Arles, sino ba ang magre-resign?
Magandang umaga, Angela at Diego. Nandito nga tayo ngayon sa Independent Commission for Infrastructure, ICI, kung saan ay nagpapatuloy pa din ang pagdinig patungkol nga sa mga maanomalyang flood control projects. Binigyang linaw nito na ICI sa pamamagitan ng isa sa mga opisyal nito, kanilang nilinaw na wala naman naiulat na gano'n at nananatili daw ang integridad ng ICI para nga silipin ang lahat ng mga maanomalyang flood control projects ng pamahalaan, higit lalo sa nakaraang 10 taon. Ngayon ngang araw ay dumating dito si Senador Mark Villar matapos nga ipatawag ng komisyon para pagpaliwanagin sa kanyang planning, budgeting, execution, supervision and monitoring ng mga flood control projects at ng iba pang mga infrastruktura na proyekto ng ahensya noong siya nga ang nagsisilbi bilang kalihim ng DPWH mula 2016 hanggang 2021. Bukod pa dyan, Angela at Diego, nahaharap din kasi itong si Villar sa mga alegasyon na pinaburan niya ang kanyang kamag-anak sa 18.5 billion pesos na halaga ng mga flood control projects ng siya ang nanunungkulan nga bilang DPWH Secretary. Pero ayon kay Villar, handa raw siyang sagutin ang anumang alegasyon na ipinupukol sa kanya at dininay niya din ang mga alegasyon na ito at sinabi na ang lahat daw ng mga proyekto ng DPWH sa ilalim ng kanyang panunungkulan ay dumaan sa tamang proseso. Bukod pa dyan, Angela at Diego, dumating na rin dito ang mag-asawang Curly Discaya at Sara Discaya para nga sa pagdinig pa din sa mga maanomalyang flood control projects. Pero isa sa mga bagay na maaaring tignan daw ay kung ano nga ba yung kalagayan at katotohanan sa likod ng kanilang mga luxury cars na ang ilan ay sinasabing hindi rehistrado o ang ilan naman ay smuggled.
Alright. Thank you so much, Mobile Journal, Arles de los Santos.
At this point, let's check the latest over at the House of Representatives with mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Amy?
Yes, good morning, Angela and Diego. Well, kahapon nga narinig natin dito sa House of Representatives na may isang magre-resign pero naitanggi na rin naman yung paratang na yan dun sa Independent Commission for Infrastructure. Pero kahapon din, balikan lang natin yung ilan sa mga nangyari dito sa Kamara. Napag-usapan na rin kasi kasama ang Department of Agriculture, pati na rin si House Speaker Faustino Boyedi III, na magkakaroon nga daw ng subsidiya yung mga farmers ng ating bansa. So meron silang plinanong programa na magbibigay ng 7,000 pesos na subsidy para sa mga local farmers at naging bahagi na rin yan yung pagtaas ng taripa na from 15% magiging 35% para nga daw mas maproteksyonan pa ang mga farmers, lalong-lalo na sa pagtaas nga ng imports ng rice na nakuha natin sa nakaraang taon. And bukod pa dyan, aabangan din natin, Angela, Diego, dito sa Kamara, kung ano nga ba mga mapapag-usapan patungkol sa budget sa mga susunod naman na araw. Sa October 13, inaasahan natin na magkakaroon nga nitong plenary debate muli para nga ma-finalize na itong budget para sa 2026. At aabangan din natin kung ano pa nga ba yung mga mapapag-usapan pagdating naman sa ICI, kung ano pa yung magiging opinion ng ilang mga kongresista sa mangyayaring hearings ng Independent Commission for Infrastructure. Pero kahapon na din, Angela, Diego, masabi ko lang, nagbigay naman ng pahayag yung ilang mga kongresista, particularly yung Makabayan Bloc, patungkol naman dito sa snap elections nga na ginigiit ni Senator Alan Peter Cayetano at sabi naman nila hindi sila pabor dito dahil nga meron na tayong konstitusyon, meron tayong institusyon din na establish na. So patuloy lang din sana ang focus din sa mga maanumalyang flood control projects at iset aside na lang daw muna itong snap elections na sinasabi. Angela, Diego?
Alright, thank you for that, mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Ayun, so that ends another day of News and Views. Ang daming again pinag-uusapan. Wala pa naman mga hearings until may official chairman pa rin tayo, inaabangan natin balita for this week.
Possible names that are coming up para dun sa susunod na...
Kiko Pangilinan.
Oo. Kasi ang vice chair nila ay si Senator Risa Ontiveros.
Ayaw niya.
Ayaw niya. Pero there are possible names, yung mga miyembro nito, of course, from the majority bloc, si Senator Raffy Tulfo, Senator JV Ejercito, at saka si Senator Kiko Pangilinan. So, we will see kung sino talaga ang papalit.
Possibly si Senator Lacson pa rin.
We don't know.
Kung ma-reaffirm daw ng majority, sabi ni Senator Kiko. Because he's pushing for that
we will see.
Alright, that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.